Everyone!
You.
Rejoice.
Oh my god, he was in the face.
Oh,
Just do that.
Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to our congregation on this holy day. In all sincerity, I know Sunday is a super busy day for a lot of people in the afternoon at conventions, and I'm really, really grateful to see as many of you here. Bless your hearts for dealing with Sunday checkout rush and still being able to make it to this panel. And so give yourselves a round of applause real quick.
And we also apologize ahead of time, these mics are really sensitive and pick up everything.
So you're going to hear us set down our glasses.
It's ASMR.
You're going to hear me swallow. But anyways, welcome to Fate Grand History, a Fate panel by Southern Cospitality Cosplay, or at the very least one half of them that are here.
One's in the Cosplay Museum, the other one is still probably recovering from last night.
Yeah, our other members, one of them is still in the Cosplay Museum right now, which is the other thing we've had running all weekend, and our other member is Nene Valentine, the MC for the cosplay show many of you saw last night.
Probably in recovery mode.
Probably in recovery mode right now, so you get to deal with us.
I'm sorry.
Rejoice.
You've been graced by the presence of a king. Be grateful, mongrels.
Do we have valid death?
Black King.
No.
Anyways, to give some brief introductions, I am D-Modder.
I'm Declan.
And we are one half of Southern Cospitality Cosplay. We're a cosplay group.
You can leave the door open.
You can leave the door open.
You can leave it open.
Yeah, it's fine. We specialize in doing whatever the heck we feel like, including doing significantly non-cosplay related panels. So here we go.
Because I've got a problem with Fate Grand Order.
We all do.
I would hope so. Otherwise, the question
we are
why
not
you're
what
here.
I would describe as Fate super fans, but we are super nerdy. So Fate is one of those series that gives you a chance to get really ultra nerdy about stuff, and this is what this panel is. It is a very nerdy panel, so prepare for some nerd nonsense. But for the sake of clarity, how many people in this panel room are not super familiar with Fate as a franchise?
Oh. Okay, got a few.
More of you than I thought there would be. So the beginning of this panel is mostly for you guys, because we're going to do a brief overview of the series. Hooray!
Incredibly brief overview.
Fate Stay Night, the original gangsta of the Fate series, visual novel released in 2004, split into 3 routes: Fate Unlimited Blade Works. Wait, no, Fate, Unlimited Blade
There we
Works,
go.
and Heaven's Field. Fate route was adapted into an anime in 2006 by
Don't watch
Studio
it.
D. It's bad, don't watch it. Studio D also got into OVW to a single film in 2011. It's bad, don't watch it. It's not aged well. Let's put it that way. UFO Table adapted OVW to a full anime in 2014 and is available to watch on Netflix. Most of you probably already watched it by now. UFO Table is adapting to Heaven's Field into a series of films. The first pre-stage file released in 2017. How many of you guys got to see that in its US release? It's awesome, wasn't it? Yeah. With the next Lost Butterfly coming out in 2019. Fate Hollow Ataraxia, the title is a Greek term meaning empty tranquility. It's a visual novel released in 2005, a direct sequel to Fate Stay Night. Rather than multiple routes, the game has a Groundhog Day gimmick where the same set of time is played through over and over again, and the goal is to end the time loops. Introduces the Avenger class to the series. Fate Zero, a light novel written by Gen Urobuchi, first released in 2006 with illustrations and character designs by Takashi Takeuchi, whose name comes up a lot in this series. Prequel to Fate Stay Night, significantly darker in tone, adapted into animation by UFO Table in 2011, and I'm willing to bet quite a few of you this was your introduction to the series, am I right? Hands up if Fate Zero is what got you.
Okay, yeah, that's not surprising.
That's not surprising. And then you learned what the rest of the series was like and you were severely disappointed. It came out in 2008, that's all we can say about it.
That's all we have to say about it.
That's all we have to say about it. Fate Extra, Dungeon Crawler RPG released in 2010. First character designs by the brilliant Wada Arco. First total AU of the series instead of just a what if like Prisma Ilia. Produced sequels and spin-offs, Fate Extra CCCC, which was never released in America. Fate Extella, and the most recent release, Fate Extella Umbral Star. Introduces the concept of having more than one of the same class of servant present instead of just a fake true concept like in Fate Stay Night. Adapted for animation by Shaft in 2018, the last Encore is more of an AU than a direct adaptation, and it's kind of bad because it never stops to ask if you're actually familiar with any of this nonsense. It just gets right to the nonsense. Wouldn't recommend it for anyone who's not already familiar with Fate Extra. It is not a good introduction to the series. It's not bad, it just doesn't stop to hold your hand. You need to know your stuff. It's kind of a sequel. It's kind of a sequel. It's kind of like how Fate Extra CCC is not actually a sequel to Fate Extra, or that Extella Umbral Star is not actually a sequel to Extella. It's weird. This series does this a lot, by the way. You get used to it. Fate Apocrypha, originally intended as a concept of an MMO, light novel series written by Yujiro Higashide and illustrated by Otosugu Konoe in 2012. Character design submitted by several Dojin artists, ones that were going to be used in the MMO idea. Which is why, if you ever notice, not all the designs in Fate Apocrypha are congruent with one another. It's because there were multiple designers involved. Story surrounds two factions, the Black faction and the Red faction, pitting each of their own versions of the 7 classes against each other. Introduces the Ruler class. Hello, John. Adapted for animation in 2017 by A1 Pictures, also available to watch on Netflix. Fate Prototype, Fragments of Sky Silver, light novel series written by Hikaru Sakurai and illustrated by Nakahara. In 2019, Nakahara is my favorite Fate artist. Just to give a little credit.
Hey,
wow, this really picks up everything, doesn't it?
Here's our other member. That's fine. Here's our other member making an entrance. This is Baby Blue Friday.
This is Baby Blue Friday, another member of our cosplay team. Everyone give her a hand.
Thank you for very nice.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just kind of confused because it's 12:59.
Oh.
Oh, we started early?
Whoops. It's really long. We need all the time we can get.
We don't have a watch on us. We apologize. You didn't miss much.
We're just doing a
We're
brief
just doing a
overview.
brief overview of the series. So we're going to get to the meat of it in a bit. But personal opinion, Nakahara is my favorite of the Fate artists. They've designed some of my favorite characters in the series, and I'm
Some of my favorite.
Ozymandias. Oh man. Anyways. Proto-Coup.
My baby boy.
Hoodie Arthur. Anyways, moving on. Each novel takes the perspective of another character, so it's very unique in that sense. It's not one central protagonist. It's difficult to find in English because, like with most fan translation projects, it kind of picks up and drops over a period of time. I believe it is all available by this point now today, but don't quote me on that. And obviously, there's currently no legal way to obtain it in the U.S. But with Fate continuing to grow as a franchise, hopefully someone will pick it up and get these released for realsies in the West. So let's pray for that because they're really good.
You may call it analogous to Fate Zero. Yeah. What Fate Zero is to Fate C9, Fate Prototypes is to the Fate Prototype Fragments is to Fate Prototype.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Okay, so technically this is a prequel to a prequel. It's a prequel to Fate Prototype, which was the original concept. Yeah, I even had a bullet point for it. I completely lost over. Thank you for catching that. Fate Prototype was originally going to be more of an otome-like game with a female protagonist and male characters that would attempt to woo her. Or it wasn't even that romance-heavy in the original either.
Prototype. She's not quite a bad
Quite a bad guy.
Like she's an enemy master.
She never becomes an ally, is the thing.
Anyway.
There aren't a lot of bad guys in Fate Prototype. The main villain of Fate Prototype is the main character's sister, so the girl in the center there. It's weird.
She's like anti-Mary. She's supposed to give birth to the Antichrist.
See, this guy knows his stuff. He's moving on. Fate Strange Fate, light novel series written by Ryogo Narita and illustrated by Kori Shizuki, released in 2015, technically an AU of Fate Prototype. You remember when I said that this is a thing that keeps happening? Centers around a false Grail War copied from the Third Grail War and a conspiracy from within the Mages Association. The light novel and manga series ran simultaneously, and Mori Shizuki illustrates both. Fate Strange Fate is a little harder to read if you're not familiar with any other part of the series, because once again, it doesn't really stop to explain a whole lot, and the Mages Association conspiracy is really thick and jargon heavy, and it's good.
It's just not.
But don't make it your first thing.
We know people who have those.
You know
so
people who
you
have,
can.
'cause a friend of ours who's such a huge fan of Waver, and Waver plays such a huge part in this particular story, that they were like, I'm gonna read this one first. I'm like, oh, my sweet summer child. And finally, we have Fate Grand Order, mobile game released in Japan in 2015 and North America in 2017. Player character summons multiple servants via randomized roles in order to fight in simplified RPG system. Story is divided into various grand orders or singularities, sending the player character and their servants to various eras in history, trying to undo the apocalypse. As of July 2018, the game grossed over $2 billion in revenue worldwide. That makes it the 6th most popular mobile game ever.
Period.
Wow.
So, any of us who were into Fate back in the day, did you ever think Fate would get this big?
Nope.
Did you ever think a mobile gotcha game would get it this big?
Here we are.
I don't know about this concept.
It's wild, guys. It's wild. Adapted into a televised animated film by Ufotable in 2016, titled Fate Grand Order First Order, dramatizing the Fuyuki singularity.
And it has Casterku launching out of his clothes for no reason.
It's great.
It's great.
I would also like to mention, since they mentioned the 2016 OVA.
Oh, we're going to mention that.
We're gonna
not done yet.
There's been lots of spin-offs for Fate Grand Order because it's so gosh dang popular. VR games, arcade games, stage shows, a full animated series to come in 2019 based on the Babylon Singularity, which we have not gotten to yet in America. Nope. Oh, it's Jordan. Oh, it's Jordan. Oh. We apologize. What was I saying? Oh yes, Babylon Singularity, which we have not gotten into in the West. And at least 2 animated films are still planned, one of which is going to be about the Camelot Singularity, which you hopefully have finished by now, because I'm going to be spoiling parts of it for you. Sorry. And basically there's a lot to Fate Grand Order, and there's going to be a lot of media about it, because it is the most popular version of Fate so far.
It's the most accessible.
Spoilers gonna happen.
Oh,
I will tell
Camelot.
you that, because we did have some rules before we went into this panel. We are not going to discuss any servant that is already thoroughly covered in another popular part of the series that's widely available in English. We are not going to cover any servants that are introduced after our current point in time in the North American release. So we're not going to talk about anyone from Babylon or beyond, or anyone in the Lost Belt chapters or anything like that. So if you're playing the Japanese version, you're already ahead of the curve, but we want to be kind to our North America only players and not talk about stuff that they haven't gotten to yet. So, but we will be talking about Camelot because Camelot has come and is ostensibly gone. So if you have not finished Camelot yet, we will let you know when we get to it, so you can plug your ears and hum to yourself. And it didn't help that we got like 2 major events during Camelot that are a little grind heavy, so whatever. Yeah, summer's been wild for North America.
Yeah.
Anyways. Now to the meat of this panel. This panel is an educational panel. We're going to talk about nerdy, geeky history stuff about 3 servants from every singularity. We selected these 3 based on their relative importance to the singularity, whether or not we like them. And once again, what we said, whether or not they're not already thoroughly covered in any other widely available in English part. You may notice a Fate Extra CCC or Servant is up there. I know it's another part of the series where it should get more screen time, but that game never came out in English. Most of you probably never even heard of it before this panel, so we don't care. Elizabeth Bathory, class Lancer, origin Hungarian history. Her noble phantasm is the prison castle. That word. I do not speak Hungarian.
I don't know how to pronounce Hungarian.
I do not know how to pronounce most of these words. So, Countess Bathory Day that word is one of history's most infamous serial killers, reportedly having bathed in the blood of virgin girls in order to maintain her youth in a dark ritual. The prison castle, that word, is used in her noble phantasm as a labyrinth-like castle that Bathory used to trap and torture her victims. In Fate, Liz is only 14 and is pulled from a time before she became a killer and seems to resent her own future and dark deeds. an anti-hero, according to Nazi. So this is going to be the first example of something they like to do in Type Moon, where they like to sort of mess with the understanding we have of historical figures, usually either changing their gender or a major part of their story to make them fit better to where Nasu wants them to fit into a given story. And he didn't really want to make a character about Elizabeth Bathory, the serial killer, because that's been going on in fiction for a long time. He's like, well, that's kind of dull, especially for the character type I want to introduce this point. So Elizabeth Bathory is a good example of that. The real life Elizabeth Bathory, the stories about her, what was her kill count? Somewhere in the range of what, like 100?
Yeah, it was
women.
High. It was very high.
Possibly heavily exaggerated because there was no control of the press at that time period, and in a time period where she was finally caught, there was a very large anti-noble sentiment among common folk, and they really wanted to, stick it to her. And she did very obviously murder some people, though.
Well, and specifically for her, there were other nobles who really didn't like her.
Yes.
So any chance to talk smack about her and make everybody not like her so they could get rid of her and her very, very rich family was okay in their book.
Yeah.
So there was a mix of, well, what did you really do versus what were you accused of that gets brought up here. Another character in Fate Zero, Gilderai, the caster from Fate Zero. A lot of the same elements there, though in this case it's played a little bit more to we thought she was innocent kind of nonsense. But, that's something Fate likes to do. But Elizabeth Bathory is a fascinating historical figure. We actually recommend you read up on her because holy crap, her castle was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But speaking of her, Carmilla, class assassin, origin Gothic literature, noble phantasm, the phantasmal Iron Maiden. Created by Irish author Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu in 1871, Carmilla is at both times one of the early works of vampire fiction, predating Bram Stoker's Dracula by over 20 years, but also one of the more influential works on fiction featuring lesbianism. It has been adapted countless times over the years, including a recent, a YouTube series that was?
I have no idea.
Set in modern times. Anyways, this character is like big part of sapphic literature in the Gothic and Romantic era. If you don't know what that word means, you should have gone to our LGBT panel. You heathens. Carmilla is a vampire countess who seduces and tends the sire of the young protagonist Laura. Her noble phantasm, the Iron Maiden, like Carmilla herself, did not actually exist. In Fate, however, Carmilla is sort of portrayed as the true Elizabeth Bathory because Carmilla's story was inspired by the accounts of Carmilla bathing in virgin blood and all that whatnot. Possibly a few of the other things she got up to, the sapphic things. In Fate, they played up Carmilla as sort of the fictionalized version of Elizabeth Bathory's vision of her own future. So Carmilla is sort of like what Elizabeth Bathory thinks she will become if she becomes a murdering, virgin, blood-bathing lunatic. So that's kind of where Fate draws its inspiration from. But as far as the actual Carmilla as in the fictional character, how many of you have played the Castlevania games? You know the famous reoccurring boss, the bleeding skull with the woman riding on it?
Yeah.
That's Carmilla. That is a reference to a bleeding skull that shows up in the novel. The song Bloody Tears, which is probably one of the most famous songs in Castlevania history, was composed specifically in inspiration of this character. So.
And she also shows up in the bloodstained 8-bit game.
Well, yeah, because they can do that, because she's a literary figure. She's not copyrighted by Konami.
She's one of the bosses. I forget which
You don't make the rules.
But she shows up bathing in a tub of blood. Next.
Anyway,
Next.
this is not a panel about Konami.
My precious,
I'm not
my precious
actually-
them.
Anyways, the precious them, Le Chevalier d'Aeon. How many of you watched the Le Chevalier d'Aeon anime back in the day?
Oh.
Okay, it was bad.
I still liked it.
It wasn't great. It was a thing.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Class Saber, origin French history, noble phantasm, the fleur de lis, the very symbol of France itself. Born in 1728, the Chevalier d'Aeon was a legendary French spy, soldier, and diplomat, and possibly Freemason, we don't know. She was known
Illuminati.
for her androgynous Illuminati. She was known for God damn it.
I'm sorry.
We apologize. It's Sunday. We're all a little loopy at this point.
I've had a very long weekend. She was known both for androgyny and taking on the roles of both men and women during her spy career. Participated in the 7 Years' War from 1756 to 1763. You'll notice that is not quite 7 years.
Close enough.
It was close. On behalf of her beloved France, she spent the last 30 years of her life post-retirement living as a woman and demanded to be recognized as such. She sort of an early feminist in that regard. In fact, she is from her time as a spy, preferring to be seen as having no gender at all. I don't want to go super into, 18th century French gender politics.
No, it's not.
Because I don't actually know a whole lot about mid-18th century French gender politics, but Chevalier d'Eon is sort of a fascinating figure in history because of their mysterious element of gender that surrounds them, but also because they were just really good at what they did.
They were an extremely good spy.
And an excellent swordsman, swordsperson.
Sword.
Who regularly defeated some of the best fencers in France on the reg, just as a hobby, which is why they are summoned as a satyr. So they're a really cool person. You can look them up. Lots of different accounts of their lives have been written. Not necessarily all of them are super true, but a lot of them are a little bit better for you than that anime we mentioned earlier. Sorry, Ed.
Also, yeah, it's impressive that as a spy, they were never executed.
Nope. They got to live the rest of their life in retirement.
And then they occasionally threaten the nobility with, I will blackmail you if you don't acknowledge me as this gender.
Yes.
It's like, yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
She was incredible.
Moving on to, that is really blurry, isn't it? That's fine on the screen.
You tried.
Look, not all the images were the same size, bite me. The septum singularity, the one everybody hates unless they're a really big fan of Nero, and then sometimes they really, really hate it.
This is the singularity that was actually apologized for.
I missed that.
The Japanese developers apologized for how long septum.
Oh.
We're not going to get into
Yeah.
a huge lot about why the septum singularity was mishandled, but we are going to talk about some of the characters featured. Boudica, class writer, origin British history, noble phantasm, the chariot of Boudica. How nice that you wrote your name on it. An icon of early British history, the Queen of Victory, who led the first century United British tribes in a campaign of revenge against the Roman Empire, who had defiled her and her daughters during a raid on her land shortly after the death of her husband. I feel this is important to point out because this is like almost like the kind of treachery you'd expect in a movie. So the Roman Empire, particularly Nero, said, "Oh, we had a contract with your husband. We didn't have a contract with you." As soon as the husband was dead, they completely ransacked her land. Defiled is a nice way of saying what they did to her and her daughters. It's bad.
Yeah, it's real bad.
But that's also inspired her to become this, human fireball of revenge and rage and anger and hate.
She channeled that.
Which she
anger at
only
the
really,
Romans.
in
I love her.
Fate Grand Order proper, you only ever get to see that personality in the Avenger event. So
Which is sad.
thanks for throwing us a bone there, Fate. She famously routed most of the Roman forces, only finally falling to Nero's personal army, though it is debated how and when she died. It depends on whose side you ask.
Yep.
The British claim she died of disease shortly thereafter, and a year afterwards. The Roman account of the battle was that she died in battle. We don't know what happened because her remains weren't preserved. Her chariot is a common symbol of patriotism and victory in the modern UK. You will see it. If you visit London, you will kind of see it everywhere in murals. They love her in the UK. I picked her 3rd ascension outfit because the rest of them are too big.
Please give her a bra.
Give this woman a bra.
I'm so sorry.
She looks like it hurts.
I mean, you would.
Yeah.
My back is killing me just
Looking at her.
Jean Kay, our first gender swapped character. Class assassin, origin Chinese history, noble phantasm, only for killing. I hate it when they name them weird things like that. Give it an item or something. Anyways, the retainer of a prince, Jin Kei, is famous for their failed assassination attempt on the first emperor of the Qing dynasty, before, it was the Qing dynasty. The entire ordeal of the planned assassination and how the attempt actually went down would take way more space than we have. There have actually been several films in China produced that detail what went down
It's
that night.
incredible.
Can I ask, the one that was adapted into English, Jet Li's Hero, is that one of the stories of this character?
I believe they're a character in that story, but I'm not sure if it's about them.
The first emperor of China was who was...
Yeah,
trying
it
to-
is about the beginning of the Qing dynasty and how the emperor conquered the various
I can look it
kingdoms.
up real quick.
But I'm not sure how heavily Jin Kei features in that story. I haven't seen that film. I know when it's set, whereabouts would have been about the same time this was going
Okay.
down. But I can't say for certain whether or not they were a character in that. But that would be really cool. Like I said, it's been the night of the assassination has been a fascination for historians and both Chinese and abroad for ages. Jin Kei almost came this close.
Oh, yes. Hero is based on the story of Jin Kei.
Okay, sweet. So you can see that movie and get a really highly stylized idea of what went down.
Yeah.
Jin Kei, yes, came this close to altering all of Chinese history, which would have, because of how China has affected, the history of the world at large, would have affected the history of everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a pivotal event in human history. Her noble phantasm is a reference to the poisoned dagger that was hidden in a scroll of the intended weapon for the assassination, and a symbol of her resolve to carry it out at all costs.
Like, that is an incredible story. I would advise looking it up. Like, it's so cool. It's just incredible how close. It's incredible how close human history was to being changed drastically by one person.
Attila the Hun, aka Altera.
Hold the reaction.
Yeah, did you not know that?
I mean, how many guys just rolled her on accident when you were going for another 5-star and another banner?
I feel this deeply.
We feel you deeply.
That was me with Arturia when I was pulling Gilgamesh.
I was like, I want to get this banner served.
I'm still mad about that.
Arturia shows up.
I didn't want you.
Anyways, moving on.
Moving on.
Origin, Eurasian history, noble phantasm, the photon ray. We'll talk about why it's the photon ray. Attila is the famed ruler of a tribal empire in the mid-5th century that took a fight to the Roman Empire so devastating that while Rome survived, it did not last much longer afterwards. He appears in several heroic and mythical cycles throughout Eurasia and has many names, but the version of Fate is essentially an OC. It has nothing to do with the actual Attila the Hun. It's a completely original character. He was created to be the main character of the Fate Extella games. Altera and her noble phantasm are implied to be alien in origin, found in an ancient ruin with hieroglyphics they could not interpret. An avatar of destruction designed purely to destroy the civilizations of Earth, aka Nasu watched Ancient Aliens once too many times and thought, hey, I've got a cool idea for a character. And nobody told him to stop. Fate, everybody! Weird character. Basically, because they just really have nothing to do with who they're supposed to be.
She's something.
She's something, man. And then she just shows up out of nowhere in Septum, and everyone got really upset. Anyways, moving on to the next one, the apology singularity, Okeanos. The first one that was fun for a lot of people and got them feeling those feels.
Yeah, Okeanos was a lot better for me.
Sir Francis Drake.
I pulled her on a summon ticket on accident.
I almost went for her and never got her.
Oh, no.
Origin Britain, yes, she's very good.
I love
writer.
her, she's my
Guys, if you've been wanting a good writer, she's amazing.
Good luck getting her.
Good luck, but she's not a banner server, so you can get her any time. So, assuming you roll 5 stars.
Anyway.
Noble Phantasm, the Golden Wild Hunt. Famous sea captain and privateer in the late 16th century, Drake was the second person to circumnavigate the globe. The first person to survive circumnavigating the globe.
That's the important part.
Oh, Magellan.
Oh my god.
How many of you guys remember that bit from Animaniacs about Captain Magellan? Whoops, Magellan. Anyways, they helped bring England to global superpower status during the Age of Discovery, aiding in its war against Spain and defeating Spain's invincible armada with cunning strategy and her flagship, the Golden Hind, aka she lit some shits on fire and just sailed them right into the armada. The Spaniards were like, what do we do? If we fire at them, they're going to explode and spread debris everywhere and catch our sails on fire. And Francis Drake was like, yeah,
About that.
It was the essential. It was just like giving a middle finger to them. Just like, yeah.
There's this, like, you had this idea of waging maritime war based on rules and regulations and
then you got
codes
this
of honor, and Francis Drake was a pirate. And Francis Drake didn't care about your rules.
I mean, they're more like guidelines anyway.
Her noble phantasm is a reference to this. In Fate, she is both times implied to have been Queen Elizabeth's lover, which was an actual rumor about the real Francis Drake, as well as Elizabeth herself, who had to become Francis Drake after receiving a facial scar during one of the battles with Spain.
Sure, why not?
This is also a real rumor in history that Francis Drake was a cross-dressing Queen Elizabeth.
Sure, why not?
And then a body double had replaced her. The body double thing that replacing Queen Elizabeth, by the way, Francis Drake rolling around as a privateer, is what inspired. Whoa, Jesus, these are loud.
We were trying to be subtle. That didn't happen. Don't mind us. We're just switching water pitchers.
Anyways, as I was saying, the whole Elizabeth Drake thing is what inspired the Phantom Menace. I'm not kidding. Amidala and her body doubles, and one of them being Padme being the adventuring Princess Leia XP that she became. That was based on this. Well, I mean, not based on that. Based on this.
Based on that idea.
That would have been way more interesting.
Moving on.
My baby boy. I don't use it, but a good boy.
The good boy. Class Berserker. Origin Cretan or Greek myth, depending on who you ask.
It's Cretan.
It's a Cretan. Noble Phantasm is the Chaos Labyrinthos. The Fate version of this famed myth. I mean, how many people are familiar with the Labyrinth and the Minotaur? Yeah, it's super famous. They took a slightly different spin on it. Asterios is the son of Minos' wife and the divine Cretan bull, a union caused by a curse from Poseidon against King Minos for defying him because he wouldn't kill the goddamn bull.
Like,
All he
fine.
had to do was sacrifice. He just looked at this bull. He's like, "You're so beautiful. I can't, honey, I can't." And Poseidon's like, "I told you to do one thing.
One
The
job.
thing you were already doing. You were already killing bulls as a sacrifice to the gods. Why couldn't you kill this one? You're useless. Your wife slept with a bull. Now you have a minotaur for a son. I hope you're freaking happy." Asterios, the name, is based on another legend of King Minos, his son that went to battle in the Persian lands and died and became a star, and that's why his name is Asterios, whatever. Anyways, enter Greek hero Theseus, who was thrown into the labyrinth as a sacrifice. Unlike in the myth, in the Fate version, Theseus saw the child behind the monster and rescued Asterios at the last minute instead of killing him, bringing him to the surface. And Asterios' finest memories are sailing with Theseus and his crew back to Greece and being like, "This is the first time I've been around people who don't hate me."
I love him so much.
He's the good boy. You should appreciate it.
In
He's not that great of a berserker,
No, but he's
the good boy.
in the
And if you don't have Nightingale, he's pretty much the only support-based berserker in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, he comes in
He's
handy,
also-
but he's still not great.
He's also in the new Japanese commercial for Fate Grand Order, and Foe crawls up on his shoulder and like nestles up there, and I'm like,
Yes, in the back.
Have you seen the artwork for Summertime Asterios?
With the floaties?
With the floaties.
I love my son.
He's so happy.
I love my horny son.
That's all we want is for you to be happy.
Literally.
Hector, who for some bizarre reason Aniplex decided to Romanize with a K in his name in the North American version. That's not how the Greeks have ever spelled his name. Anyways, Class Lancer, origin Greek myth. He did not actually exist, by the way. There was no actual Prince Hector of Troy. Noble Phantasm, the Durindana. as they say in the Japanese version. A Trojan prince and Troy's greatest warrior in the Trojan War, rival to Achilles. Despite his younger brother's impulsive abduction of Helen of Troy that led to the war, Hector still led the Trojan army instead of surrendering his brother or Helen, considering his actions truly just. He is considered one of the few actual, did nothing wrong Greek heroes in the great Greek mythos.
Weird, 'cause he's such a dick.
He's such an asshole in the singularity. But the truth is, when Paris adopted Helen, he was like, okay, I get it. She was in an abusive relationship. You wanted to protect her. You didn't think this through. You didn't know this would start a war. But I know if I send you back, they'll kill you, and she'll just go right back to being with her abusive husband. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to fight this war because I love you so much. So everyone give a round of applause to good guy Hector. He nearly had the war won despite overwhelming odds and finally succumbing to the famous Trojan horse, because he's stupid too, I guess. Oh, he died before.
His sister had a curse
Thank you.
on her, but from the gods, but nobody would believe her prophecies.
Oh,
because they were always
Cassandra.
true.
See, the version I read is that he died when they raided after the horse.
Well,
Well,
the sister was telling
Greek
everybody that
mythology
the Greeks were going to invade the
Yeah.
swords, and she's cursed with nobody will ever believe her prophecies, but they'll always be true.
I do remember that part. I do remember her trying to warn them. But I thought he had. Greek myth.
Greek myth.
Greek mythology.
Shrug. His spear Dundadana famously nearly shattered Ios's legendary shield, piercing all but the final layer. They reference this very scene in Fate Unlimited Labors when
Archer and Lancer
Lane tries to pierce,
the A's shield.
and he gets right down to that last layer, and then it stops, and he's like, "Well, you cheated." What the heck is an archer using a shield for? You suck.
That's about how that went.
On to London. Hooray, London! Because most of the important servants in London are in either Fate Prototype or in Fate Apocrypha, we ended up picking some weird ones. So sorry if you wanted to hear more about Mordred. We're not talking about Mordred. Anyways, Paracelsus von Hohenheim. Because I can never remember how to say his name, I'm just going to call him von Hohenheim a lot.
Because everyone knows that alchemist.
Everyone knows that name. Class Castor, origin German history, noble phantasm, the sword of Paracelsus. A Renaissance-era physician and pioneer of medicine, often cited as the father of toxicology and an innovator in prognostics. He's also famous for his studies of alchemy. Probably more famous, if I'm going to be honest. Because, in medical school, you'll be like, oh yeah, the guy toxicology changed how we did prognosis in the Renaissance age. And everyone else is going to be, oh yeah, the guy they based Ed's dad on in Full Metal Alchemist.
Toxicology test the other day.
Yeah, I mean,
It was fucking awful.
and you have this guy to thank for it. Woo!
Screw you!
What were highly fictionalized in the Fate universe and intricated into the franchise's fictional history and world building. He's part of the Mages Association. He's one of the people the Clock Tower first kicked out because they're like, stop telling people about magic. And he's like, but magic helps people. Also, screw you. That's why they kill him, because they're like, stop talking about magic. It's like, no, I'm dying and I still want to talk about magic. Magic is cool. Let me tell people about it. His sword is constructed from the Philosopher's Stone, a fictional item often associated with him and inspired the Harry Potter franchise.
There's also a craft essence from the summer event that cracks me up every time I see it, where he's making snow cones, and it's the servant, like the void dust that he's pouring onto the snow cone, and Hector's in the foreground, just like, what is wrong with you?
First of all, don't eat that. Why did you waste my mats like that?
It worked hard to get those.
Stop telling people about magic. Charles Babbage, if you've ever taken a computer course in high school, you know about this dude.
What's this dude?
Class Castor, origin British history, noble phantasm, the dimension of steam. Babbage was a 19th century mathematician, inventor, engineer,
And not a robot.
and philosopher. He's not a robot.
My head can't overrule that with a robot.
They did do an autopsy on him.
Not a
He
robot.
was not a robot.
Sorry to disappoint.
But he believed he was. Anyways, his biggest contributions were the difference engine and analytical engine, the world's first programmable computers. And they work still to this day. They're brilliant inventions. They changed the entire course of technology in human history. Like,
It's incredible what he was capable of doing.
considering when he was doing it,
Yeah.
his noble phantasm is based less on what he actually created and more what he dreamed to create. With the computers, he never actually finished. A new era of mankind led by advanced technology.
Yeah, he never finished the difference. They never finished the difference of the analytical engines, but they proved that they would work if he had been able to finish them, which is incredible considering they were built in what, the late 1800s.
Yes. He was a big inspiration on Nikola Tesla, whom everybody likes to adore and worship. He was an inspiration for a song by V&V Nation called Streamline.
Yeah. That's
Build me a
beautiful.
future, splendid and graceful. Oh, I love that song. Anyways, moving on.
Please.
This clown.
Voiced by Koyasu. Have fun.
Class Caster, origin German folklore and literature, noble phantasm TikTok bomb, and aka the servant everyone uses because they don't have another caster capable of doing damage. He's not that great, but you know, if you need a damage caster, like,
Nursery rhyme, man.
Damage.
Nursery rhyme is gold. He's silver. Who do you think you're gonna get?
There you go.
Anyways, he's the worst possible demon.
Oh, demon.
A figure from folklore, adapted by Goethe for his telling of the Faust legend. Mephistopheles struck a deal with Faust, granting him superior knowledge and medical skill in exchange for his soul, only being thwarted in the last minute by love.
Because of course.
In the Fate universe, however, Faust is a magus who crafted Mephistopheles as homunculus, only to be betrayed by his creation in the end, because he's a jerk.
He's a chaotic evil demon. What the hell did you expect?
His noble phantasm is a representation of his trickery, because he obviously did not use time bombs in Faust. But, I mean...
He's also the one that'll scare you because you don't realize it's voiced by Koyasu Takahito.
Yeah, and his voice lines are just screaming.
I love him.
I love him. He's adorable. I hate him. Anyways, moving on. To America, a pluribus unum. Florence Nightingale, who's not from America. And yet she's the main character of America. Class Berserker, origin British history, noble phantasm, Nightingale pledge. Now, before we go on, how many people had an idea of what Florence Nightingale was like before playing Fate? And how many people are like, this is not what I thought she was going to be like?
I did a report on her.
Well, it turns out that Fate is actually a lot more accurate than your imagination. Nightingale was a certified badass. An English social reformer, statistician, and nurse who rose to prominence during the Crimean War. Nightingale famously fought against social concepts of class and gender and enemy soldiers because she would kill people raiding her medical tents. Because quite frankly, the Red Cross was established at this point, but the Ottomans didn't really respect the Red Cross. So they would make raids on medical tents because, you know, they're used to a style of warfare where that's not off limits. And then she would take these guns and shoot people who were trying to get in. And she was a good shot. She published simple English medical books for common folk, which was a big no-no at the time, because people were like, why should common folk know how to read about medicine? They'll stop coming to these overly expensive doctors. Boy, doesn't that sound familiar. Medicare reform. That's all I'm asking for. Anyways, and first secular nursing school, also a big no-no at the time, within St. Thomas Hospital that still stands to this day, though it's not the same building, obviously. The Nightingale Pledge is a modified version of the Hippocratic Oath used specifically in nursing. If any of you guys know an RA or are an RA, if you are an RA, bless you.
RN.
RN. They'll know about the Nightingale Pledge. Fictionalized versions of Nightingale tend to basically boobify her, for lack of a better term. They make her into a delicate English lady because she was a noble.
But she was not delicate.
But she was not delicate. She shot mofos down. I'm trying not to curse.
We've already failed in that.
Yeah, I know.
The berserker aspect, her madness aspect, is her willing to do anything for a patient, even if that patient will suffer through it. So.
It's fine. It's fine.
Who needs anesthesia?
Anesthesia.
Wow.
Anesthesia.
Anastasia is also a servant. I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah, please no.
Anyways, moving on to an actual American hero, Class Caster, origin American history, noble phantasm is the Sago Degi Maria. A leader of the, I practice these, Bidonkle band of the Apache tribe. Geronimo famously united the Chihuahua Apache bands in a campaign of revenge against U.S. and Mexican expansion into Apache lands. This was in a period of time where the U.S. and Mexico had just gotten done with another war. Yes, another one.
There's a lot of them.
There was a lot of them in this time period, and then they were like,
1842,
well,
1846.
rather than settle our territory dispute, let's just kill all the Indians living there and then colonize it. And the Apaches were like, could you please not? And after a while, Geronimo was like, you know what? I may not be a war chief, but I'm sick of this, so I'm going to take 30 to 40 braves with me, and we're just going to mess up Mexico's Christmas. By the way, Fate kind of buys into the bull hockey nonsense that his name is a permutation of Saint Jerome's name because the Mexicans would shout that as he led his war parties against them. No, his name was always Geronimo. It's from the Apache word to yawn.
Yeah.
Yes, like whatever you heard about the St. Jerome thing is nonsense. That was not what happened. That was a story Geronimo himself made up. Anyways, he escaped from reservations 3 times before finally being declared a prisoner of war, after which became a famed legend and celebrity in America. So the attempt of the U.S. Army was to silence him by making a prisoner of war and taking him out of the reservations. Boy, did they fail.
It made it worse.
Because they printed it out in the newspaper, and Americans are like, this dude's awesome, even if he's, fighting our own armies. And like, can we have him at the World's Fair? Can he sign autographs? I'm not kidding, he did this. He was a literal celebrity in America, especially since, and this is true, his forces generally only numbered 30 to 50 versus armies of 5,000 plus, especially U.S. cavalrymen.
He was
probably some of the
ballsy.
most well-trained soldiers in America at the time. His noble phantasm is a reference to the Apache coyote legend. If you're familiar with Native American myth, you know who Coyote is. His noble phantasm is a reference to Coyote essentially stealing the sun's tobacco,
Yeah.
and the sun being real mad about that. An important part of Apache religious practices, though. Geronimo himself was a born-again Christian.
Yeah.
Weird, but hey, you do you. But yeah, he's an oft misunderstood American hero. He's actually one of my favorites. Learning about him in U.S. history, I got really fascinated by him. I tried to write a paper on him, never finished it. Took my C like a man. But if you want to learn more about him, he's actually a very fascinating character. I highly recommend it. And rather than just talk about one of them, we're going to talk about all the Celts.
the pronunciation. Oh my god, the pronunciation.
How do you guys here know a thing or two about Gaelic phonetic pronunciation?
Okay.
All right, did you know that this is nonsense? So let's do our best here. Fate features several Celtic heroes from across several heroic cycles. Who wants to try the first one? Now, I want to know someone who doesn't know how to pronounce it. Try to pronounce it. So, who doesn't know how to pronounce this word?
So you in the hat had your hand up.
What?
You in the hat had your hand up.
Pronounce that first name.
Kuchulain.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Is that one of these?
His name can be pronounced 2 ways.
3 ways.
3 ways. Cuchulain is the one most famous, the one Fate goes with.
Cuchulain,
Cuchulain, which is the one you will most likely hear in Ireland.
depending on which part of Ireland.
Or the one Final Fantasy used for a random off boss in Final Fantasy Tactics, Cuchulain.
That's actually how they pronounce it today. It's Cuchulain.
Either way.
There's 3 different ways. You can pronounce it 3 different
Well,
ways.
because Gaelic has 3 different dialects.
Yeah, Gaelic has 3 different dialects, and you can pronounce it 3 different ways depending on which dialect.
And
it
it's
is.
regional, so
Good luck.
most of the time you're going to be...
Don't.
The Ulster pronunciation, I believe, is Cuchulain?
I think it's Cuchulain.
Cuchulain?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Just to add a little bit more lore to it, don't forget his original name, Satanta.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Satanta, but that's easy to pronounce.
Yes.
I know.
No, we're not going super deep into them because they're in so much.
Who does not know how to pronounce this? Want to pronounce that second name? You and the glasses.
Darwin O'Dina.
Yeah.
You knew.
You knew.
You knew.
They can also be pronounced Odina.
Yes. You do not pronounce that B, which I know a lot of people watching Fate Zero were like, I don't.
Where did they
I
get this
looked
from?
and you read it, and you're like, I don't.
I don't. Where'd you get this from? You're lying to me.
That third one's pretty simple. Skahak, the T silent. Who wants to pronounce Fergus's surname?
I can actually.
Yeah.
If you can't, I want someone who can't pronounce it that should get a shot at it. All right, you have the glasses again.
Beyond Matt, come.
Not him. Not
that one.
That's what we were getting to. Oh my
One
god.
before that. Fergus is easy.
Fergus.
Pronounce his surname.
Fergus Matt. Roach?
Nope.
McCroy.
McCroy. Fergus McCroy.
McCroy. You don't even say those last two letters.
Yeah.
All right, we having fun. The last one everyone gets wrong. You know, you just imagine somebody.
Got a package for Fionn Matt Cumhale?
Party of 5 for a Fionn Matt Cumhale.
Finn McCool.
His name is pronounced Finn McCool.
Sounds fake, but okay.
Dropkick Murphys wrote a song about him. They didn't even bother to write his phonetic name.
Why does Gaelic have so many letters and never go pronounced 90% of them?
Dude, because Gaelic hates.
F it.
Look, I can say this. I'm Irish. Like, yeah. So we know this language was developed by a bunch of old men, druids, and their writing system is even worse. We preserve it for the sake of history, but yeah, whatever.
They had a writing system?
That's that scribble you see above the pub. And Queen Mab, or Queen Mab, or Queen Maeve. Maeve is the most common one you'll hear in Ireland, as Mob is also another one you'll hear. Represented mostly as Lancers, not all of them, but most of them. Coombs, Cahat, Fergus, and Mab are all characters in the Ulster cycle, the tale of Cuchulain's rise to legendary status and his use of the cursed spear Gaybulge. I'm sorry, Gaybold. Yeah, ask his English voice actor about that sometime. He got a chance to fix it. He got a do-over in the dubs of the later series, but in the first anime, he sure went all in on screaming gay bulge. Finn and Darmood are characters from the Finian cycle, Tales of the Finna, who protected Ireland from all manners of threats, human and mythical. Finn McCool is a... I almost did it. He is not a particularly well-handled character in the faith, but in the actual Irish myth, he is basically on par with King Arthur in terms of legendary status.
His
name is literally McCool. How can he not be?
He is also one of the architects for the King Under the Mountain.
The, what's the word for it?
No, that's not the actual word for it.
Burger trucking?
Sure, whatever. That's what they call it in Undertale.
Moving on.
Cool.
And finally, we get to Camelot. Who here has not finished Camelot? Plug your ears.
Well, okay.
It's a minor spoil.
Assault was in Fate Apocrypha. We already covered. No, we're not doing.
We're not doing
anyone
from Fate Apocrypha.
Yeah, we're not doing anyone from like.
You can watch the anime on Netflix. There's nothing we can teach you.
Yeah.
Bedivere, class saber, origin Arthurian legend, noble phantasm, the Ergetlam, which is another Gaelic word that hates you. King Arthur's marshal and one of his first knights of the round, Bedivere is an important character in the finale of most Arthurian cycles. In most versions of the story, Bedivere is the one that served King Arthur's final request before death, returning Excalibur to the Lady of the Lake. In Fate Grand Order specifically, he never returned it, like a jerk, and it transformed into the legendary Celtic gauntlet Ergetlam, cursing him to immortality until the task is finally done. He has combinations of two legends here. The Ergetlam was a gauntlet that would bind itself to someone and make them immortal until a particular task was completed. In Bedivere's case, his task is to get rid of the frickin' sword, bro. But Bedivere is very, very attached to his king. He's like, by throwing this away, I'm finally admitting that
my king is dead.
My king is dead. And I don't want to do that. He's a precious baby in a sad sack, and I get it, but just throw away the sword.
And also, the thing about Bedivere is that he was a very average knight, and he was always a very average knight. And
like, there aren't a lot of big epic stories about Bedivere in the Arthurian.
And that's why Arthur trusted him so much.
Mostly because Bedivere was basically Arthur's gopher.
Yeah.
It was errand boy, but you know, in the end, he was the most loyal of Arthur's knights because he was the one willing to do the task of setting aside Excalibur. Just throw away the sword, man. Just throw it in any lake. Anyways, moving on, a knight that more people are familiar with, but not the one most people are familiar with because he's in Fate Zero. You guys know the Grrr Knight. Yeah. Anyways, This is Gawain, Class Saber, Origin Arthurian Legend, Noble Phantasm, Excalibur Galatine. Trust me, I looked it up, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as the Galatine. It wasn't even part of their Arthurian Legend. It's something they made up because they needed to have a Noble Phantasm for. Anyways, Gawain is not one of Arthur's most accomplished knights, but still one of the most famous. The Maiden's Knight fought on behalf of women and the poor, and famously was the central character of Gawain and the Green Knight that we all had to read in middle school. Where his personal chivalry won him favor of a fayish knight who had promised to return the killing blow Gawain gave him in a year's time. The struggle to uphold the bargain, as well as be chivalrous with the Green Knight's lady, earned him his respect. Gawain is an excellent story of, it doesn't matter if you did your best, so long as you just tried. You might say he's the original tryhard.
Try harder.
He also brings boxes of potatoes to potlucks.
Oh my god. I love that
Uncooked,
word.
unpeeled potatoes.
Just potatoes.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
They call him the handsome gorilla. I love him. Like with the Celts, we're not discussing a specific Hassan because there is no such thing as specific Hassan.
We left King Hassan.
I left Grandpa.
We left Grandpa in the museum.
Oh, we left our grandpa one. Anyways.
I won.
Hassan was the leader of an Islamic sect of warriors called the Nizari Ismailis, or commonly called the Hasashin. Hassan referred to his disciples as the Assassiniun, and it is from that name we derive the word assassin. If you've played Assassin's Creed, you've heard all this. Unlike in Assassin's Creed, fate does not give them the veneer of, oh, we were in a holy war against the Templar nonsense. They were bad dudes and did bad things. They were a cult. Rashid ad-Din Sinan, the old man in the mountain, was considered their chief among Hassan's men, though in the Fate world, all of them share the name Hassan based on the practice of actual Nizari used to avoid identification if captured. They ask him, what is your name? I am Hassan. Okay, but that's the same answer the other dude gave us. What's your name? I am Hassan. That's all you're getting, buddy. Hassan's sect was something of a cult of death and used the fear and influence of his assassin in order to secretly rule Persia during much of the Crusades, spreading legend and myth about himself and the Nizari. Hassan was a bad dude. He was a cult leader. He basically turned all these young male and female warriors into his own personal army of death that were so fearsome, the actual kings in Persia refused to do anything about it. The Zamaniya Noble Phantasm was more of a battle cry for them. It wasn't an actual thing. But in Fate, the Zamaniya is basically whatever that particular Hassan used as their primary assassination tip. There are 6 Hassan total in the Fate franchise. Only 4 of them are in the Fate Grand Order game right now. I don't know where we're getting the other 2. There's actually technically 7, because I forgot about the smaller dude from the Third Grail War, who Zamaniya turns your brain matter into gunpowder. So I'm going to call him Hassan of the Brain Exploding until he gets a real name.
Are you having a strange fake one too?
Yeah, there are 2 in Strange Fate. There's the failed Hassan, and then there's the actual Hassan. They don't have names either.
In Fate Strange Fate, it's the Zealot Hassan who was supposed to. Essentially, she and Fate Zero Hassan were both in the running to become the 19th Hassan. But Zealot Hassan literally freaked out everyone else, and so they gave it to Fate Zero Hassan.
Because that's why the Fate Zero Hassan sucks.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but between the 4 of them, she is the dog worst in the game. I'm sorry. Anyways, I hope you guys learned something fascinating, but we have just a little bit of time for questions and answers, and yes, they can be about history, they can be about fate. We're going to try and answer all of them. Who's got a question?
9 minutes.
We have 9 minutes. You have the glasses.
Okay.
Oh, wait, you're both wearing glasses.
Okay, you first.
You first.
Okay. So, I know you said no bit of apocryphal stuff, but I really want to ask this to get someone else's opinion on this. Astolfo.
We love Astolfo.
I mean, I like Astolfo. I don't necessarily like the way the novel treats Astolfo. I especially don't like Astolfo's designer. I think they're really creepy.
I like Astolfo, but I don't like people using the T.
Oh yeah, no, do not use that word.
No. We discussed this in our LGBT fan.
Oh, yeah,
We're
no,
not
never,
using that word.
never,
That's a banned word in this
Yes. No, he is a cross-dresser.
He is a cross-dresser. That's fine. But also,
Why can't he just be non-binary?
That too. Well, that too.
Well,
But
he's-
also,
I think he's happy
we're
with being a
talking
dude.
about a person who didn't actually exist either.
Yeah.
Astolfo was a legend Charlemagne created that didn't actually exist.
He may have been based off of like Charlemagne's like nephews or cousins.
Yeah.
But the truth is, he wasn't a real person.
Yeah.
So
He
yeah.
was.
So, yeah.
And in Fate Apocrypha, he explicitly says that he's a guy. I happen to wear feminine clothing,
Yeah.
but I'm a guy, male.
Yeah, he's just a cross-dresser. Yeah, he's just
So
a
yeah,
cross-dresser. That's
Jan's
all.
pretty explicit about it.
Yeah.
We're cool with it.
Yeah.
Astolfo's cute.
I love him.
He's not great in Fate Grand Order, but
No.
that's fine.
He's a disappointment. I'm sorry. Yeah. And yes.
Anyways, yes, your hands up.
So, I know a lot of my friends were kind of disappointed about the servant choices in the American Singularity. If you could choose any, like, historical or legendary figure from American culture to be a servant, who would you choose?
Oddly enough, this is the exact question I was
Oh,
gonna ask.
So,
I
a figure
would
from
choose-
American history.
I would choose Harriet Tubman.
Oh yeah.
Harriet Tubman.
I would think Annie Oakley, honestly.
Ooh, that would be fun too.
Annie Oakley's another good one. I would have gone for another Native American hero, any of them. Geronimo's not the only one. He may be the most famous, but he's not the only one.
Like Sitting Bull? Or?
Sitting Bull would have made an excellent rider.
Yes. Oh my god.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh my god. Sitting Bull's a rider would have been incredible.
I might be a bit biased here, but I really want John Paul Jones in the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want-
maybe. Yeah.
Now remember, you can't choose an American president because Edison is specifically an amalgamation of all the presidents.
Giant lion head.
But you and
MGM Studios.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my personal pick, by the way, Nathaniel Green.
Okay. Benjamin Franklin would also have been a good
Yeah.
choice.
Yes.
Since you mentioned American heroes, in one of the big Grand Order character materials, it lists, like various, essentially lists like not only these guys, but other guys who could be summoned on other servants. Robert E. Lee is actually listed for potential ruler and a potential offender.
Why a ruler? He wasn't the leader of the Confederacy.
Shrug.
Like, I gave him as a heroic spirit, but why a
Yeah, because heroic spirits don't necessarily have to be good people. They just have to be legendary. An Avenger makes a lot of sense. But ruler?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a series where to qualify as an archer, you have to have thrown something. Okay, yes, you in the front.
Not necessarily a question, but I need to shout it to a room. I'm very mad about how they screwed over Siegfried. Thank you.
Yes.
I will defend Siegfried to the death.
I have him grilled at 90 right now.
Look, he has
my dragon boyfriend.
He has the highest HP of all the sabers.
In
2 years.
2
years, yeah.
If anybody has Siegfried that they don't want.
Oh man, I actually bought him. I actually got him as a. I actually got him.
I will defend my dragon boy to the death. And let me tell you, a team.
The only time I got him. The only time I got him was I got him in the free 4-star for the first one, and I got him as a second free 4-star.
Let me tell you, just from a gameplay strategy perspective, a team of him, St. George, and Alterjon, no one will be able to touch you. You kill everything. Because George tells your enemies, you're now dragons. Jalter says, you're taking extra damage because you're dragons. And Siegfried's like, all right, it's murder time.
I love my
So
dragon.
yeah, like Siegfried gets a bad rap as being, the Sumonizer. Like nobody wants, but he's actually really good. And then Apocrypha has a problem that there's and this is my big criticism of Apocrypha, not just the end of the light novel in general, is that there's a lack of focus on characters to the point where it feels like none of them get their just due. Astolfo gets a lot of spotlight because he's the illustrator's favorite, and I get that, but there were other characters that, especially when it sets up you thinking that Mordred's going to be the lead character, and they're not. Siegfried had the potential to be a lead character. He's not. Even the villains at the end of like so many characters just feel like they're just there to get to point A to point B. And an ensemble cast is doable, but it also feels like a lot of wasted potential because a lot of the characters that are more interesting we would learn nothing about. All right, 3 minutes. We'll take one more question. You and back.
What did you guys think of Jack the Ripper's iteration in the...
Gross.
Gross. I prefer the version of Jack the Ripper that's in Fate Strange Fate, you know? The omnipresent fog.
It's not the look, it's the lore.
Oh, the lore is fine.
Yeah.
The lore is fine.
Put pants on her, please.
The idea of a lost child seeking out a mother figure, and that's the design, which by the way, Jack the Ripper's character designer is the same person who designed Astolfo and subjected him to being abused by his master.
That should tell you a lot of things.
Kind of a creep.
I don't need. But yeah, the lore for Jack is fine.
The lore is fine.
But put pants on him.
Yes.
Just give her pants. She's so cold. Give her some pants.
On Facebook, there was actually like a fan, like someone edited, Jack the Ripper's, card art in order to give her like a completely covering like bodysuit.
Yeah. I remember Reddit freaked out and thought that was a censored version from the Chinese version. It's not.
Yeah, just please put some pants on her.
I'm going to point out that it looks a lot cooler and more.
Jack,
Yes. Better.
Okay, so can we all agree?
That's how she gets all.
Give Jack pants.
Yeah.
Give
Minors,
Jack pants.
minors should have
Give
pants.
Jack pants.
Give Jack pants.
Anyways, this is evolved into shit posting, so I think it's time to call it a good panel. Thank you all for coming out on Sunday. We know this is a busy time.
You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And if
This
you
was
want
our
to get early,
first time doing the panel,
Yeah,
so we were all glad to
really appreciate you.
Very good.
There's 3 panels I've been to. Like, really.
Sweet.
Love doing that.